Good evening, councillors, staff. Welcome, councillors, members of public and staff. I declare the meeting open at 6:34. Okay. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner. Keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to address in public forum. I also ask councillors to observe the requirement under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. I remind all present that the video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Bidjigal clans, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respect to elders past and present. I did get a message from Councillor Poulos. She's an apology. And I think everyone else is here. And welcome, Councillor Barlow, on the side there. Okay. Any disclosure of interest, councillors? We've got 5 reports. Any disclosure? No disclosures of interest. That would be recorded in the minutes. Now we go on to minutes of previous meeting. Could I have 2 councillors that were present in the last meeting to endorse the confirmation of the minutes, please? Councillor. Were you here, Councillor Kassem? Yeah, Councillor Strong and Councillor Brederhoff. Moved by Councillor Strong, seconded by Councillor Brederhoff. Thank you. That will be recorded in the minutes. Okay, we've got no items by exception, no public forum, I believe. And we go on to reports. We have 5 reports for the City Services Committee tonight. Our first report, CS 25.035, Community Improvement District Program, Carlton Parade. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Mayor Dougal, seconded Councillor Breda, who's given us a rundown on that. Phoebe, thank you.
Through the Chair, Council has been successful in being granted funding through the Community Improvement District Pilot Program to undertake an initiative in the Carlton Parade that will lead the enhanced visual amenity, more engagement through local businesses and increased visitation. This report provides councillors with an update on the progress, and in particular, we'll present 2 concept designs for place vision and branding, key requirements of the grant funding. I'll hand over to the Manager of Community Life, Rani, for a PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, through the Chair. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation which will display. Just quickly some history on the pilot program in New South Wales. It's really about empowering local businesses to improve their local precincts, and these sorts of improvements can include things like streetscaping and other works that enhance visual amenity, but also the forming of partnerships and collaborations with other businesses and community organisations, as well as holding local activations with a view to stimulating local centres and increasing visitation. So we've been working with the retailers, community organisations and the commercial property owners within Carlton Parade in Carlton over the last couple of months. As the Acting Director said, we've been granted almost $400,000 in funding from Transport for New South Wales to work with the traders, the community organisations and other stakeholders in Carlton Parade on local placemaking initiatives to improve the precinct's visual amenity and strengthen those local partnerships. We were selected in round 2 of this pilot program, having been an unsuccessful applicant last year for round 1. And this year we're one of 5 local governments that were selected in round 2. As a recipient for round 2, the time frame for completing the project is less than otherwise would have been allowed, and our project has to be fully delivered and completed by the 30th of June next year. As the report notes, the funding stipulates that half of the grant funds must be used for physical interventions, and that would be things like public art, wayfinding and interpretive signage, some of the streetscape improvements like planting and infrastructure improvements, and culminating with an event activation at the end of the grant period. The other half of the grant funds are to be used for non-physical interventions such as economic analyses, those partnerships and collaborations again, business sentiment surveys and workshops, and detailing a district vision and district branding strategy to promote the precinct, which is what I'm actually going to present tonight. We've had pretty solid engagement from local businesses, the commercial property owners and community organisations, as well as Business Chamber South, attending our workshops and also completing the survey, the sentiment surveys. The engagement is detailed in the report, so I'm not going to go over that other than to highlight that from the survey and workshop feedback, in particular the retailers' aspirations about the precinct have shaped the vision and the overall branding strategies that you'll see tonight. So one of those non-physical interventions was funding that allowed us to engage a placemaking and brand specialist, and through a selective quote process, Frost Collective was approved to provide this service. Frost has experience working with doing similar work in South Eveleigh, North Sydney, the Quay Quarter in Circular Quay, Queen Street Mall in Brisbane, and the historic Queen and Collins Streets precinct in Melbourne. The goal was to take the feedback from the stakeholder engagement, produce 2 visions with branding concepts, and then to provide that back to the local stakeholders. So there are a number of attributes that came out through the stakeholder workshops and surveys. Participants identified key strengths of the precinct as being a respite from the hustle and bustle normally associated with a large city, and people who are familiar with the area might know that Railway Parade on the other side of the train station is that sort of hustle and bustle area. Carlton Parade is a little bit more sleepy. Customers to Carlton Parade express surprise that it's there, and this becomes a pleasant surprise, even joy, at finding more than what they might have expected once they happened onto Carlton Parade. The arts organisation spoke to the legacy of creativity in the precinct, and there are some well-known creative organisations that have a home in Carlton Parade. The Frost team also noted the entrepreneurial spirit and the bespoke offerings that are available on Carlton Parade in some of the retail outlets. Customers tell the retailers that they love that they feel welcome when they visit retail outlets on Carlton Parade, and they feel free to chat with the many what they call as friendly characters on the parade. And interestingly, the post office on Carlton Parade has been dubbed Sydney's friendliest post office. Lastly, the retailers in particular love that the parade feels like a village, and their aspirations that they noted is to become sort of more like Lura and Barrel, to emulate those for their village-like atmosphere. And in particular, they love the Art Deco heritage that is so prominent in the area. The main message that's come from the retailers is that they view the area as offering more than just being a creative hub. There's a lot more on offer in Carlton Parade. However, while each of these attributes genuinely reflect Carlton Parade, they are individually in and of themselves insufficient to serve as a draw card to the precinct. However, if combined together, they do hold promise. So the first concept draws on the vision of the character elements that the stakeholders loved, together with that local friendliness and charm to position Carlton Parade as a parade of hidden local delights. Retailers said the feedback they have from customers, as I mentioned before, is that they don't know that Carlton Parade was there, nor did it offer the experiences that it has. And in that sense, people feel that they've stumbled upon a hidden gem of local delights. So this concept puts these unique characters about the parade on parade. Oops, what happened there? So visual inspiration for the branding has been drawn from the Art Deco features that are prominent on the parade and also from the signage, the font from the signage on the local buildings. So we would see Carlton Parade, however, using the vision of Hidden Delights being on parade translates to Carlton Parade. And the beauty of this is that it can be used in so many different contexts as well to really capture some of those different elements and experiences that are available on Carlton Parade. So there's just a whole heap of options that are available through this one. And the concept brings a colour palette that aligns with the Art Deco inspiration that is authentic to the area, but also signals the joy and delight that people have when finding that hidden gem that Carlton Parade is. And this is consistent with the vision that is derived from the precinct stakeholders. So into the branding, Frost have drawn imagery from the precinct, including that iconic blue building. You can see the tiles there, they're outside the front of 1111, and some of the local food offerings that are available, the stage from Shopfront Arts. So these elements can be used in branding here that is authentic to represent the physical environment. And here are some of the elements that represent the different experiences that can be had on Carlton Parade. So the latte art, the creative offerings, the food, and just that retreat from the hustle and bustle. So overall, there is a lot of love for this one. The branding designs easily lend themselves to any collateral format, and you can see some options here, the flags, posters, and some shop signs for the local retailers. The branding's sort of identifiable with the precinct, and people love the colour scheme and that it fits with the different experiences available on Carlton Parade. So on to concept 2. So concept 2 draws inspiration from the feedback that Carlton Parade is a friendly place, it's a place of passionate people, and a place where everyone can be proud of, taking ownership of Carlton Parade as the parade in Carlton. So in this concept, Carlton Parade becomes Carlton's parade, making a clear statement that distinguishes our parade from the other parade across the rail line. The concept again draws on the Art Deco features that are prominent in the built environment and also utilises the fonts in some of the buildings, such as the Carlton School of Arts. And here's an example of what the logo and branding would look like from this particular concept. So one of the options with this one is in taking ownership of as Carlton's parade, the opportunities open up for local businesses to adapt the branding concept to their particular business. So in this concept, we could have Arbor's Ice Chai Frappes, Nick's Weekly Wine Picks, Shopfront's Creative Spirit. And one of the things that people obviously have pointed out with this one is that if a business changes hands, then obviously the branding needs to be redone again. However, they did like the idea of being able to personalise this to their own shop. So the colour palette for this concept picks up too on some of the colours that are element in that Art Deco environment. So the red brick, that iconic blue from the building, and the beige colour that's common in Art Deco buildings to produce an overall calm but authentic branding palette. And these are some examples of how that colour palette would apply in this concept. This concept has very detailed artwork associated with it. So it's not it's quite beautiful, but it's very different from concept 1. And it would translate into some of the elements that you can see here. So the street flags, the posters, and some of the branding that could be used on the businesses. So there was also some love for this concept as well, the orange colour to be that bit of pop, and the fact that it's a point of difference from what you would normally see. However, the imagery was considered to be a little too esoteric, and some retailers felt that it didn't really convey a clear statement about Carlton Parade and its offerings. And I mentioned earlier about the inbuilt redundancy that comes with this concept. Council's graphic designer has also viewed these, and that person's opinion was that while the high detail in the artwork is quite lovely, it does come with its own challenges, in particular translating it into different formats. And his concern was that the overall impact of the artwork, while it is beautiful and detail, could be lost if it's used in certain formats. So to summarise, here's the two concepts side by side. The preferred one of the local stakeholders, however, was this one, in that it conveys the cheer, the joyfulness, the friendliness that you get with Carlton Parade, and doesn't have that literalness of Concept 2. People also see a lot of potential for using this in individual businesses without that inbuilt redundancy that comes with Concept 2. Council's graphic designer has advised that Concept 2 does have its own challenges, as I said, and the artwork of this is a lot less literal, and just highlights some of those unique elements within the Carlton Parade precinct. So that is the two branding concepts. I guess what we're asking for is the endorsement of council for this one. I will note that we do have some further work to do with this. Notably, we need to add council's logo to, particularly if we're using this in some public facing things like the street flags, any sort of posters and so forth. And there are also some other little tweaks that we want to make to some of the individual elements to this. For example, the art, the paintbrush with the paint, the palette, it looks like a fish when it's translated into the cartoon. So we'll just make some slight tweaks with that. So that's the first thing. I also just wanted to quickly show councillors the draft concept plan as well. So I mentioned with this grant, we do have to do physical works. We don't have a lot of money to do large-scale physical works, but there are some things within the budget that are possible just to give a bit of a lift to the precinct. So some of the things that we're talking about doing are putting in some fairy lights in trees. We're in conversation with the funding body, which is Transport for New South Wales, who own the rail line, to help us come up with a way to deal with some of the rubbish bin storage. So because the retailer's back onto the rail line, they don't have an alleyway behind their business to accommodate their rubbish bins, and subsequently you get bins sort of on the street. It's a bit of an eyesore. We've got some ideas that we've put to Transport for New South Wales about how that might be resolved, but it does require their permission as the landholder. Some of the other elements in physical works include some public art. Councillors may not know, but Miles Franklin, renowned author Miles Franklin, did see out her final years living in Carlton. She had a little house in Grey Street. So we feel that it is time to bring some homage to her and recognise her attachment to the area. So we do have some budget for public art, and also to make some improvements to the seating in Stell Reserve, and also put in some planter boxes with some planting for the street.
Sounds good.
So from here, we'll just, as I said, we'll finalise the district branding with our logo and just touching up a few other elements. The draft concept plan, if we can get endorsement from council, can be presented to the retailers and the other stakeholders as part of their, for their feedback and their input. We will give notification to residents in surrounding streets of any physical works, and we are in the stages of planning our event activation next year, which will close out the project.
Thank you, Ronnie, for that comprehensive report. Appreciate it. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Wong?
Through the chair, will the event activation be the thing that activates the whole campaign, like with social media activation around the event? Will it be the beginning thing that kicks it all off?
Through the chair, the event is meant to showcase the final product of all of the physical interventions and be a celebration of what the stakeholders have achieved through the collaboration.
Okay. Councillor Brittahoff.
Oh, I just want to say it looks amazing. I agree with the people's choice and I'm looking forward to the party.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? Okay, so we have a officer's recommendation. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bala.
Oh, there's one on the chair. Yeah, the table.
I know the area fairly well. And Miles Franklin's, we have a plaque in the Stell Reserve. Is that all going to be combined or?
Through the chair, yes, there is a little plaque that is in Stell Reserve. It's very hidden and we feel that it can be given a bit more
Yeah, that's what I mean. It'd be
prominence.
good if it came out.
Yeah.
Because then her house is in Grey Street and it is on the list.
Yes,
Hopefully, it's on the list. Okay, it was great. Looks really good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor Bala. Any other comments, councillors? Okay, so that's been moved and seconded for the officer's recommendation. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Okay, we're on to the second report, CS 25036, draft sports grant allocation and usage policy and code of conduct and conditions of use. We have an officer's recommendation, mover and seconder, moved by Councillor Kassim, seconded by Mayor McDougall. We'll get a bit of a summary on that.
Through the chair, Bayside Council manages an extensive network of sports grounds that support organised sports and informal recreation and community wellbeing. Increasing demand has driven by population growth, changing participation trends and new sporting codes has highlighted the need for clearer and more consistent allocation framework. Council has developed two complementary documents, one, the Sports Ground Allocation Policy, and two, the Sports Ground Code of Conduct and Conditions of Use Guidelines. These documents establish a transparent framework for fair and consistent decision-making, consolidated existing conditions for hire, and introduce clear behavioural expectation and enforcement processes. They also respond to the Council resolution, which called for a code of conduct for users and hirers, incorporating respectful standards of behaviour, defining consequences for non-compliance and supporting continued collaboration with police and community organisations to maintain safe and inclusive use of council facilities. It is proposed that both draft documents be placed on public exhibition until mid-February 2026 to seek further feedback from sporting clubs, schools and the wider community. Submissions will be reported to the City Services Committee with any recommended amendments. The Manager of Libraries and Lifestyles, Bobby Main, will provide a short presentation on this matter.
Thank you, Phoebe. Okay, just some background. So the sports grant allocations are currently guided by operational practices set in terms and conditions and historical arrangements. And whilst they provide a good baseline, they lack strategic principles and behavioural standards and clarities of roles and responsibilities. So we have drafted a sports ground allocation policy, a code of conduct and conditions of use, which establish a more formalised and transparent framework, setting out those strategic principles, clear roles and responsibilities, and consistent standards for allocation of use in sports grounds. Documents were informed by industry standards and practice, input from council staff managing different roles across sports grounds, recent meetings we had with New South Wales Police, Georges River and Football St George, review of policies and sanctions of the sporting codes, and benchmarking against policies and guidelines from other councils, including Georges River and Inner West. So I guess the framework, how it works is the sports ground allocation policy establishes the clear and equitable process for the use of council sports grounds. It supports the sustainable management of assets and encourages participation across all community groups and strengthens partnerships between councils, clubs and sporting associations. The Code of Conduct for sports ground users underpins the policy by outlining the expected standards of behaviour for all users, clubs and associations. It promotes respectful and responsible use of facilities and includes provisions for managing breaches and applying penalties where conduct requirements aren't met. The conditions of use are set out as the operational requirements, and they're set out in a bit more detail in the document that underpins the policy. And there's terms that apply to hirers using booking procedures, maintenance responsibilities, insurance, compliance obligations. These conditions translate from the policy into day-to-day practice and ensure consistent application against all users. So a bit of information on the policy. So the policy scope applies to all council-owned and managed sports grounds for regular and seasonal activities. For leased and licensed grounds, it's governed, this policy and the supporting documents apply to those leases and licenses unless there's specific terms that override it, because we've got already leases and licenses in place. But this is quite a lot of information in the guidelines and guides. So if there is a term that overrides in the licence, then it wouldn't apply. But other than that, like for example, the expected standards of behaviour would apply to everyone. For special events, we already have our event guides and frameworks. So special events go through a separate process. Other exclusions, obviously passive recreation areas, aquatic centres, golf courses and those casual one-off uses and personal training, and we already have booking procedures and processes in place for them. The policy works alongside, as I've mentioned before, the Council's Code of Conduct, the conditions of use to set behavioural and operational standards. The allocation principles which are outlined in the document, and I won't go into all detail because there's a bit of information to absorb, but we've got principles that include local participation priority, equity and inclusion, juniors and development pathways are a focus, sustainability and maintenance of our assets, our sports grounds, shared use and collaboration, particularly when we've got, demand outstripping supply, compliance and standards, viability and good governance, community benefits, transparency and fairness, and, allowing that emerging and growth sports as well. In terms of the hierarchy, this is quite consistent with our neighbouring councils. So when we're looking at allocations and how we prioritise the priority around the allocations, sport associations governing local competitions, and that is occurring at the moment. For example, Football St George on Friday, Saturday, Sundays have priority on allocations to schedule the competitions. Same with Rugby League, schedule weekend competitions, they have priority for all the clubs to participate in. 2 is the local home clubs. They're the spiritual residents of certain locations and sports grounds. Other Bayside-based community clubs, schools within the Bayside LGA, representative and elite teams, community and social sporting groups, and commercial/private hirers. There are seasonal definitions that are outlined in the document, and again, this is consistent with our neighbouring councils. There is a summer season, which is defined as the first weekend in October to the last weekend in March. And so the priority for summer seasons are those traditional sports for allocations, such as cricket, baseball, Oztag, touch football and the like. And then we have our winter season, which is defined as the first weekend in April to the last weekend in August. And traditional sports get priority of allocations, which is netball, rugby league, rugby union, AFL, hockey and football, soccer. There is, as most of us are aware, there's a pre-season and off-season when people are getting, registrations, getting prepared, getting into training. And we will look at allocating, and we do look at allocations for the crossover of sports, but the priority remains, so priority would be remaining based on the season. So if it's summer season and cricket still has the priority, then you wouldn't be allocating it to a winter sport until that summer sport has completed its competition. And that happens at the moment, and it's very collaborative between a lot of the clubs and a lot of the different sporting codes to be able to try and manage that. For eligibility, incorporated not-for-profit clubs and associations or locals, local schools. The majority of participants are Bayside residents, and we ask evidence from that from the clubs and sporting associations. We're already kind of doing that. Have no outstanding debts to council, have a good compliance record, including your code of conduct, and hold relevant insurance is important. The selection criteria that would go through the allocation process, the framework is obviously we would refer to the hierarchy of use, which I've outlined. Any historical allocation and what has been historically allocated to those applicants, membership and participation levels. So it's not automatically given that because you continue to grow, we continue to give you extra allocation. We have to look at the balance. And also there are constraints because all the clubs want a lot because they're all growing. And speaking to the association, they also are challenged around competition schedules, and it's a bit of Tetris come allocation time, but we're trying to make sure that we can meet everybody's needs. But there are considerations and impacts that we have to consider. If participation levels drop and you've got bigger clubs that are growing, then we have to look at that too, because you can't just book out a whole week and not use it when other clubs are bursting and trying to have access to fields. So we have those discussions with the applicants. Collaboration and shared use is encouraged, and we have got examples where clubs and other bodies are using fields during seasons together in different time slots, as well as that sharing of amenities buildings crossing over between summer and winter seasons. And if there are disputes, we do get conflicts sometimes in wanting the certain days at certain times, and we try and resolve them through mutual agreement and discussions between the parties as well as the associations. Outline in the policy and also in a bit more detail in the Code of Conduct and conditions of use are the shared roles and obligations. So hirers are organisations or individuals who have access to facilities on a short-term or seasonal basis, and they must comply with those core conditions of use. Home clubs, as I said, they're a spiritual resident. They've got a spiritual home. They've been a legacy club for a long time at one location. They have some additional elevated responsibilities because they're anchor tenants. Sport associations provide local and regional coordination, and they oversee competitions, they monitor compliance, and most importantly, they're also the responsibility of the behaviours, the issuing of sanctions and penalties, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation. Sporting bodies, they're like, your Football New South Wales or your Netball New South Wales. So they're those state or national bodies that establish those sport rules and standards and strategic direction at state and national levels. Council obviously's core responsibility is to allocate the grounds, issue permits, maintain facilities, ensure that we try and be fair and equitable where we can, with all the demands of not only sport use, but recreational use and community use as well. And then we also have New South Wales Police. Their primary role, and in discussions with them as well, is that they obviously, anything that's in the breach of the law, they will respond to, and they also have participated in providing services of things like events or high-risk sporting events. Conditions of use, principles that are in the policy, but again outlined in more detail in the Code of Conduct and Guide. So the key principles here is that public access for structured and organised use. It outlines the time span of when sports grounds are available for bookings. It's to note that even though we have a time span that might go from 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m, there are other conditions that we take into consideration, and that's outlined in the guide as well. Things like if there is a development consent that has restrictions, if we do have, impacts on the intensity of use around the area, if we do have plan of management controls, those sorts of things are also, so they're site specific, and we also look at them when we're assessing that time span. Maximum hours of use of structured use, so that's outlined in the guide as well around where is that cut-off time. I think it's 35 hours for grass and 60 hours for the industry standard for synthetic use, and that's so the deterioration of the asset and the protection of the asset, and so we're trying to manage that overuse of structured activity. Again, there are outlined in the documentation is around conditions around that. So whilst you might have 60 hours of synthetic use, it doesn't mean that we're going to allocate 60 hours of it. It means that's the cap. But again, considerations, development consent, impact on seasonal intensification of use. There might be environmental, there might be plan of management conditions we also have to take considerations from. Closures, wet weather ground closures are determined by council. Lighting, noise and amenities managed to mitigate the impact on local residents. Capital works and improvements, obviously they're not going and altering sports grounds and facilities without council as the owner's approval. And there was a breached managed via staged enforcement, warning, suspension and then penalties. Forms of agreement that are issued in terms of allocation of use, that regular seasonal allocation of use, they occur through an EOI process. We do seasonal expressions of interest with sports clubs and schools apply for. Council may issue one or more following forms of agreement, a non-exclusive licence and exclusive licence seasonal allocation permits. They're the most common that we use is the seasonal allocation permits, or it could be a combination of both. Non-exclusive and exclusive licence needs a resolution of council. There's examples of where we've got that, but predominantly we're talking about seasonal allocation permits. Fees and charges are determined by council, and the principle that's in the policy is that sports ground we may charge sports ground hire fees, direct service costs, damage deposits or bonds, penalties, fees for breaches. Fees and charges are in accordance with council's adopted fees and charges and remain unchanged. It's the principle that's in the policy. However, the review of fees and charges is a separate project that's being undertaken, and that any changes to the fees and charges would be presented to the committee and council once completed. So the Code of Conduct and Conditions of Use, it outlines the roles and responsibilities, which I've just mentioned at a high level, the Code of Conduct and breaches and penalties, fees, insurance and liability, and then obviously the document goes into some detailed conditions of use and guidelines. The Code of Conduct, which was a response to the notice of motion in August, was to set clear and behavioural expectations for all users and hirers. The focus areas for the Code of Conduct is to be respectful and inclusive behaviour, safe and family-friendly environments, professionalism and integrity, and compliance with child-safe obligations. The breaches and enforcement process, as I mentioned before, the sporting associations and governing bodies are primarily responsible for the governing of the behaviour of the sports clubs, teams and participants, and have the authority to issue sanctions and penalties, and they do that. And we had a meeting with the association last week, and they do that, and we're in regular contact with the associations. What council's role is then, and what's proposed in the Code of Conduct, is where those sanctions have been issued by the association and governing body, we would support that in our capacity. So temporary cancel or suspend bookings. So for example, if a team has been stood down, has been removed from the competition, then they would not have a booking, would cancel the booking because they've been removed, they're not playing. Restrict access to allocated fields, similar example, or apply any of the operational action, any other operational actions that support the association and the governing body's decision. Talking to them, they've got incidences where the associations might require a risk assessment. They might require that someone has, a big vest that says that they're part of the club walking around we would then make sure that we've got that in our terms and conditions of use, for example. The breach response process is a verbal warning education. We're not wanting to just, hit people hard unless it's a significant breach. We would work with the clubs because, this is also things that guide that they may not have been aware of or have, trying to be consistent approach as we move forward to allocations and behaviour. So it'd be a verbal warning education. Then there would be a written warning and possibly a corrective action plan or a formal written notice. And there could be a number of penalties that council may apply. And obviously due process, there's an appeal process. If we come to where we have to issue a penalty, there could be one or more model penalties that may apply. Again, as I've mentioned, could be a suspension of sessions or facility use, could be a cancellation of seasonal or regular allocations, and that would be quite a significant breach or, constant formal notifications, and they haven't corrected their behaviour. Future allocation penalties, serious misconduct or legal action, referral to a sports association or body, after-hour call-out fees, if they're using the facilities unauthorised. They may also get charges for that unauthorised use, cost recovery and bond forwarding your bond, and it could be a monetary fine plus cost recovery depending on the severity of the breach. So that's kind of the code of conduct. I said more information that's in the document. In terms of conditions of use, there's a lot there. It's stuff that we already apply or already do, or it's very consistent with our neighbouring councils, who our clubs play sport across neighbouring councils. It covers and assists, I guess, the sporting clubs as well around bookings, allocation processes, hours of use, cancellations and closures and weather restrictions and what happens in relation to that, sport ground ownership alterations and improvements, the general terms and conditions of use, and we've also got information around our contact information so they ensure that they know they can contact the right person for the relevant matter. So the recommendation is that we note the report and that the committee recommends that the council endorses the draft sports ground allocation policy and the sports ground code of conduct and conditions of use for the purpose of public exhibition and community engagement. We'd be engaging with the sports clubs, the sport associations, neighbouring councils, police, and general community around these documents. And we were proposing to do that probably around February because that's at the moment there's a bit of a lull in the sporting. They're either in the middle of summer sport or they're really just starting to think about their winter sport. So it's better off if we've got them all back and raring to go so we can engage with them properly. And that the outcome of that engagement piece is that a further report will be provided to the City Services Committee around March, April, if we after the consultation process is completed. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Just with the public exhibition period till February, wouldn't that come to council in the new year rather than coming back to the committee if it's been through a public exhibition? For adoption, I guess.
Through the chair, we've tended to bring the results of consultation back through the committee and any flow-on changes to the policy that might occur as a result of the consultation. If there was an occasion where we got virtually no feedback and no changes suggested, there's a possibility we could go straight to council. But where we do get a substantial number of responses, we tend to come back and discuss those with you at committee level.
Sure. And with that policy, will that be sent directly to clubs, major clubs, or will it only be on our council website or?
Through you, the chair, we would be sending it out to all the clubs, all the regular allocations that we've historically been using the facility, as well as their overarching associations and sport bodies. And the New South Wales Police who have been engaging with, our neighbouring councils who have been talking to regularly about this policy are interested as well. We would be sending it out. There would be a strong engagement plan. So we're not intending, and we are looking at possibly facilitating a forum as well in February to be able to have that face-to-face or online engagement and get some, more connectivity to those groups as well, rather than just sending a piece of paper out.
Sure, no, that's great. Thank you. Councillor Kassim.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's great to see the sort of systematisation, which I think Council's doing in a number of areas to develop these policies. A couple of questions. One, I might have missed it, but pretty early on, you raised some, I don't know if they're really so much criteria as things which were encouraged of people, things like inclusivity. There was a bit of a list you had there early on. I'm just wondering how they actually how they actually get assessed. Do they get assessed in that category where you talk about membership and participation? Is that where it goes? Or, because I can see that the hierarchy is the decision-making process. So I'm just wondering how those other things fit in. If you can remind me of the other elements to it as well.
Yeah, through you, the chair, there's certain principles that are outlined of what we would expect them to demonstrate in the policy, but in the guideline, when we go through the allocation process, it actually outlines that they need to submit information as part of their application that demonstrates. So you need to demonstrate, what are you doing in terms of inclusivity? What programs or activities, the membership data they have to present as well. So there is some processes and frameworks that are through the document that I haven't sort of had time to go through or will be here all night. But yeah, they're certainly outlined in there. But if we feel that they're not as strongly drawn out, then we can certainly have that feedback and consider it.
Okay. Because I guess my second question was really whether you're expecting that there would be very much change. Like, with this policy, are we talking about a
Major change.
overturning in terms of the sorts of people who are currently getting access to these facilities?
I think it's more about providing consistency and transparency in the information.
Absolutely.
And I don't see it as a significant change to a lot of the information that we're already asking the clubs to provide.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of a consistent framework and also assists us in my staff in terms of decision making and informing that decision making. So when we're looking at those principles and it's a bit more accountability as well, accountability for the clubs to be able to demonstrate and also for us to then make those informed decisions and have some information that backs those informed decisions. But in terms of a significant impact, most of the information that is in the document, we already apply.
That's what I
It's
thought.
just that it hasn't been brought together and documented into one clear document.
So systematisation.
Yeah.
Look, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions, councillors? Mayor McDougall.
Thank you, Ms. Martin, and thank you, Chair. Sorry. I just wanted to raise a few issues. So first up in the selection criteria, I think it's perhaps implicit in what you've written, but it doesn't actually make membership numbers a criteria for selection. Like in your presentation, you mentioned that was a factor, but I don't think it actually says that here.
The actual policy or the guide?
In the actual policy. I'm looking at 6.6 selection
Yeah,
criteria. It sort of matches up against the presentation you gave, but then in 3 and 4, it doesn't actually say that we'll consider how many members a club has in selecting whether or not they're granted access, which I think...
The Chair, I think it refers to it in point 3, but it may not be clear enough. So where a hirer continues to demonstrate membership numbers, council will not unreasonably refuse to provide an allocation consistent
That doesn't
with
say that we're
previous-
going to provide more allocations if you have more members or less
Correct,
if you don't.
yeah.
Which I think that's your intent, but that should be clear.
Clearer, yep.
And then I think in general in the allocation policy, I don't think anywhere it provides for discretion. I think given the many unforeseen circumstances that could occur, it should always be clear in this sort of policy that council can take another direction. I mean, you could just imagine we set out a strict booking hierarchy. We might have a school hosting getting into a final that they've never been in before or something, and we need to find them a field. An officer applying this policy, I think, would have no discretion to deal with that, and I think that should be built in. I just think in general, any policy should be applied until there's a circumstance that doesn't fit the policy. But I think that should be, so if we could, I don't know if we could have an amendment to this, to modify some of these, that those be amended and, make minor amendments in accordance with the committee's discussion or something to that effect, if everyone's in agreement. So I think those two things on the allocation policy, and then on in the code of conduct and conditions of use, I'd say I would say it sort of almost has the opposite problem in the breaches and penalties section, that it's actually unclear when and how we're going to exercise these. And I think based on the discussion of council at the time, I think we do really need to be clear about what a general approach to enforcement and compliance will be. So for example, when you go to the section 7 breaches and penalties, I think it doesn't provide a clear description of when each type of action will be taken by council. In fact, that the table, I think, is sort of a useful tool. This is at page 52 of the report, but it should be clearer what sort of breach would result in each of these in the first instance. So you're not going to be able to exhaust every single situation in any way, but perhaps an example compliance framework. So an organisation like the ATO would do this, where they set out how these things apply in various cases, and it's not meant to boil the ocean on every situation that could ever occur, but making clear that this is the sort of progression we would take. Not only helps implementing the policy, but also generates transparency with user groups, I think. And I think, I suggest that might actually be worth reporting back to the committee, because I think everyone would be interested in how that actually applies, because I think it would benefit from doing a bit more work in this, so we have a really comprehensive policy to actually go out to these groups with, that they can really sort of lean back into. I mean, I don't know, well, for example, we might have a sort of zero tolerance response to any sort of violence that results in immediate penalties. We might not, depending on what council wants, but it should be, I think it needs to be much clearer how we're going to engage in this, because I think the problem we're trying to address is that it's unclear how we respond to these sort of groups and incidents. So if we're going to do that, we do need that clarity in the policy, I think. It's probably all from me.
Yep, good points. Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Curry.
Yeah, I think to everyone's point, my other thought is, so we talked, you mentioned how some sporting groups will book fields for periods and they're not utilising those fields. I am really conscious though that the system will allow for those rest periods of those fields. So if we're condensing the usage for certain clubs specifically to their actual usage hours, then it's important, or I guess I'm asking the question then, what is the strategy to ensure that other clubs aren't then given those grounds to an extent where the field is not resting?
Through you, the Chair, outlined in the document, which I may have not mentioned in the presentation, there are specific rest periods that need to occur separate to the allocations. So, for example, a grass field would need one rest day. So if that was a rest day and then you had the 4 days as an example and the club didn't need it, but we were trying to relieve the impact of use in that site. So there's two options. One is that they don't need it, so therefore could it be shared is the question. If it's a summer period like now and we want to de-intensify the use during a summer period and rest the field so they can rehab more, which is what we're doing now, we block out those periods or we reject the request. And we've been doing that for the last few weeks. To make sure that we are de-intensifying. Do you really need it? It's not the current playing season. So we do interrogate that information and we can block it out. When they put the requests in, they don't automatically get approved. We have to review them and review the intensity of use across the field. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So is there an opportunity to really, you mentioned possibly to highlight that these fields are not bookable at these times, subject to once the sporting group has indicated their availability, but then we, say, for example, they only want to use it for 3 hours, right? But there's another 2 hours of daylight. So then can we, like at those points, can we then block it out to say, you know, that the field is being rejuvenated, field is on rest or whatever the terminology is? Because I'm just worried they're going to look at it and go, well, no one's booked in here. Why can't we use it? And whereas if there's a reason, and we have the footnote that explains what that is and why, yeah.
We have addressed some of that information through the more detail that's in the document. The challenge is that we've got a real balancing act of demand outstripping supply, and it's trying to manage that as well. So we've got seasonal, it's a bit of sometimes it's discretion within a framework. And there's also the respect that we go back to the home clubs. We're not just going to all of a sudden give another user to come in at those 2-hour time slots where you've got a legacy club being used there. So, and that's already happening as well. We were meeting with clubs this week that said, oh, we're working with X, Y, and Z, and they come and help because they need an hour and stuff like that. So there's a lot of collaboration happening with the clubs to try and use fields, being respectful that we don't want to overuse the fields. So it's a bit of a management, and it's a difficult science to try and then all of a sudden strike out and say, you must not use this and you must not use that, because every site has a different wear and tear as well, or a different sport being played on it. So we've got a good guide, I think, that we're trying to work towards a good guide. It's not perfect yet. We need the community engagement, but there is a little bit of that assessment, taking in the site-specific factors, the legacy clubs, those sorts of things. What season are we in? To try and give, the bit of the field a break, but also the residents a break from it not being used consistently, intensely all through the year.
Okay. Any other comments, councillors? If not, we've got a mover and seconder and sorry.
I think that recommendation to bring this back with changes, particularly to the
Yes.
that replaces the rest of the motion, rather than just being an addition.
I wonder if it can be circulated to councillors prior to, so they actually read it before the council meeting,
The draft.
or the
The
amended
updated,
draft.
yeah.
And
Okay.
because this is probably one of the biggest things that we get community feedback on.
Or maybe that's a good point. Maybe this doesn't need to come back to a committee, but if we can make these changes before the council meeting and circulate it, that would probably be fine.
Yeah, and before the public exhibition.
Well, we want to. We think we can provide a sort of meaningful update to the enforced.
Do you have
before the council meeting?
Do you have enough time, I guess, before council? Yeah, let's do that.
Surely we can bring it back to the December council meeting will be early. I'm sure we can bring it back to the December committee meeting.
We've got 4 committees on one night.
But I mean, the good thing about that is that there'll be more, like all the councillors will be there, that means.
If we go to the council meeting, all councillors will be there, obviously. We hope to have more councillors at the committee meetings, but remember, not all councillors attend
that's
any one
right.
of the 4 committees.
I guess if it comes, if we get it in December, you still got enough time to put it on public exhibition till February anyway. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that was very good discussion. Thank you, Robbie, for that report. Okay, we've got an officer recommendation. We've got a mover and seconder. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. We're on to the third report, CS 25037, response to notice of motion, establishing a sports advisory committee or sports forum. Mover and seconder. Moved by Mayor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Kasim. Maybe we get a bit of a summary on that. Phoebe, thank you.
Through the chair. In September 2020, 25, Council resolved to investigate options for establishing a sports advisory committee or a sports forum. A review of the engagement models from Georges River, Inner West and Randwick councils found that stakeholder forums are a common and effective approach to support collaboration, inclusiveness and efficient communication. Outcomes from these forums can be escalated through existing council committees as needed. Building a Bayside successful participatory forum such as the creative industries and the LGBTQI+ inclusion forums, it is proposed to establish a community sports forum held at least twice a year with additional sessions scheduled for specific topics or initiatives. The first forum will be held in early 2026, focusing on seasonal allocations, child safety and key policy updates. $12,500 has been allocated in the current operational budget to support delivery, including venue hire, refreshments, facilitation and administration. The Manager of Libraries and Lifestyles, Bobby Main, will provide a presentation on this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phoebe. This is a quick one. I know we've got a few reports to get through. It works. Okay, so just a summary. So the background, there was a notice of motion in September, a report to be presented to relevant committee discussing the potential to establish a sports advisory committee similar to Georges River or a sports forum. The objective was to seek options for the structured engagement between council and local sporting organisations. My team and I undertook research and benchmarking of other councils in October, and we're here in November to report back to you. So the analysis of the engagement model, there's two engagement models. One is an advisory committee and one is a forum. And I know that's pretty fine print and it is outlined in the report. But I guess to go through it, the advisory committee is more of a rigid model established through council resolution. It's got standing membership in terms of reference. The admin demand is high because you're going through those formal reporting cycles and agendas and minutes. The representation is a fixed membership with defined roles, and it may underrepresent emerging or minor sports, small sporting groups. It's structured membership with defined voting rights. It's got a formal agenda and governance focus. Its flexibility is quite limited because it's tied to the meeting cycles in terms of reference resolved by council, and it's a separate reporting line directly to council, and that's kind of what Georges River has at the moment. They have 15 representatives. The councillor is a chair. There's 2 councillors represented on that committee, and they have a voting model. In relation to the forums, there's a clear purpose and framework. However, it's more flexible and adaptable model. Its admin is more low and streamlined coordination. It's open and inclusive participation across stakeholder groups, so you can invite different representatives and stakeholder representatives depending on the nature of the agenda. It's open and inclusive. It promotes information sharing and joint problem solving. It's collaborative and solution focused. It's highly flexible and can focus on specific issues, themes or projects. And outcomes are reported through the existing council committees like City Services Committee and then on to council. In other councils, when we did some research, we've got the forums and working groups tend to be more popular. They've got Inner West have sports forums and working groups, Randwick, Parramatta, and actually Bayside does. We have the creative industries, LGBTQ+ inclusion are examples of them. And so we're already applying that model. And Georges River is the only one sort of in our neighbouring area that has a more formalised sporting advisory committee. The preferred approach that's recommended is that we would like to establish a community sports forum, and the purpose of that would be to facilitate communication and collaboration between Bayside sport and recreation stakeholders. It's an open invitation, so you'd have representation of attending invitations out to sporting associations, clubs and user groups. And from time to time, there'd also be specialists. There could be industry specialists like with Office of Children and Guardian or the Office of Sport around the child safe, for example, is an example. New South Wales Police would be another example. The frequency biannually or more often in line with key strategies or project milestones. An example of that is if we are looking at engaging with the policy, then we'll be proposing to have an engagement process and a forum in February. The format, they're structured workshops in forums with theme sessions that emerge and as are required or are emerging or are an issue. Council officer would prepare the agendas, record key discussion points and agreed actions. Escalation, the forum outcomes and recommendations would be summarised in a brief report to the relevant council committee for noting. However, if there is a particular matter, the recommendation that requires endorsement, then that would be through that reporting mechanism. The first forum, as I mentioned, if it would be established, and we would meet in February, probably towards the end of February, so we can engage on a number of themes, including seasonal allocations, because that's when we're bedding down the winter ones. Child safe framework, policy initiatives, for example, the allocation policy, and any key projects that may be relevant to the sporting community. So the recommendation is that council establishes a Bayside Community Sports Forum as the preferred model, that the sports forum is convened at least twice annually and facilitated by council's sport and recreation team, which is in my area, and that outcomes for each Bayside Community Sports Forum is reported to the relevant existing council committee for noting or for further action. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Councillors, any questions on that? Okay, no questions. We have an officer's recommendation. All in favour say aye. Against, declare carried. Thank you, councillors. The second report, CS 25038, response to question with notice, Green Street Mascot Depot. Do we have a move on a second? Move Councillor Curry, second by Councillor Strong. Report on that.
Through the chair. The report responds to a question without notice from Councillor Douglas at the August 2025 council meeting asking whether the Green Street Depot or the Mascot Council Depot, any of other council-owned sites, could be suitable for a circular economy hub. The Circular Economy Hub, these are typically facilities for reuse, repair and resource recovery and community education. Examples in the region include the Inner West Sustainability Hub and the Randwick Sustainability Hub, which provide services such as repair workshops, textiles and plastic recycling, community education and swap activities. The sites currently assessed are the Green Street Depot, 1 to 7 Green Street Banks Meadow, zoned Industrial 1. Approved for specific waste services operations, hours and activities. The site does not meet council's requirements for a circular economy hub at this stage. The Mascot Depot, 130 King Street Mascot, is zoned RE1, public recreation, proposed to be repurposed for an indoor sports facility, making it unsuitable for a circular economy hub. At the moment, no current council sites are suitable at present. However, further investigation is being conducted.
Thank you, Phoebe. Okay, councillors, any questions? That sounds pretty straightforward, I guess. No suitable sites. Thank you. Council, we have an officer's recommendation. All in favour say aye. Against, declare carried. Thank you. And we've got one more final report. CS 25039, response to native motion, arts and culture concept needs assessment.
Through the chair, if I could just say a couple of words before we pass to Patrick Kremen to do a short presentation. I just wanted to remind councillors that this came about, this discussion came about because our plans initially to use the church hall in Bryant Street weren't able to proceed because of the condition of the building and the cost of work that needed to be done to bring that to a reasonable state. When we did some of our walk-arounds Rockdale Town Centre with councillors, there was quite a bit of interest and discussion around what an arts facility might look like, what it might include, how much space would be required. So Patrick has come along tonight to do a short presentation to answer some of those inquiries that you had and to give some sort of an idea of the purpose of an arts centre and the space requirements to make it a worthwhile and a workable facility. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, GM.
Through you, the Chair. As part of the upcoming Rockdale Master Plan, an arts and culture facility is being included in that proposal. For this facility to succeed, it will need to be unwavering with its vision, name and use. Southern Sydney is without a significant council-run arts and culture facility, and from recent community consultation, Bayside residents want a dedicated space where they can interact with creative exhibitions and be creative themselves. Our residents have said that most of the arts and cultural activities they participate in are outside of our LGA, and they want to be creative in their own neighbourhoods where they can engage in new ideas walking distance from their home. So I've got a quick snapshot that should be there now. So we've conducted 2 quite extensive community consultations over the past 2 years. One for that site at 5 Bryant Street, which was to be the Community Cultural Centre, and the Arts and Culture Strategy last year. So there's been quite a lot of enthusiasm for these engagement reports. We had 133 survey responses for the 5 Bryant Street site. The number of those people who were from the arts, had arts background, music background, filmmakers, designers, and there was quite a lot of interaction on social media as well. And for the Arts and Culture Strategy, there were 17 submissions and just under 200 page visits for that site. So that information has been brought into this thinking, into this report. Some of those key quotes from that consultation were open an art gallery, support new and existing creative groups, establish a cultural centre where arts, crafts and cultural activities are held regularly, provide a substantial gallery facility like Hazelhurst at Gymea, have a local arts and culture centre as a focal point for various arts and cultural exhibitions, performances, events, displays, activities, lessons and information, provide more children's workshops that are affordable for all, and studios for artists in residence, print workshops, rehearsal rooms for musicians, room with a number of computers for workshops with the community. There was probably just over 100 different kind of submissions such as this, and these are the highlights from that. And from the community consultation about that 5 Bryant Street site, the overwhelming response were that people want art classes and workshops and an art gallery space. Alongside that was community function spaces, such as multi-purpose rooms for hire that can be flexible. And we have space for industry and community programs, seminars, information sessions. They were unsupportive of, say, council meetings taking place there, and less unsupportive of adaptable space for industry and community programs. But from this information, it does show that there is quite an interest in creative spaces where the community can be creative themselves and also interact with creative programs. So benchmarking against other council-run arts facilities and numerous site visits, it is highly encouraged that the new facility include flexible exhibition display spaces where travelling exhibitions can be accommodated for. This includes ample storage, loading zone delivery access, and security technologies that are requirements when loaning an exhibition from institutions such as the Art Gallery of New South Wales, Powerhouse Museum, State Library, and the Australian Museum. Flexible rooms that can be used for creative workshops and creative learning, facilities that can accommodate visiting school groups for tours and workshops, entry-level greeting desks and ample back-of-house staff office space with a small collection storage for exhibition preparation and changeover, a double wall system for the proper installation of artworks and 2D, 3D displays not reliant on hanging wire systems, AV tech that allows for flexible use of main gallery space as performance space as well as hosting events as required, and a specific gallery lighting system. Now, the use of a facility such as this would be professionally curated exhibitions on display, say 3 to 5 times per year, an ongoing series of creative workshops that run every week for the community, an ongoing series of creative events, music performances and activations, and community events across the year in the multi-purpose room. So from this study, I might just put up the dimensions or suggested dimensions of a facility such as this. So the site for the Rockdale Master Plan is in a prime position to positively contribute to local community arts infrastructure. The following recommendations draw on the preceding analysis: considering demographic growth and change, current and future supply and demand of community infrastructure such as this, overall 930 square metres is recommended. So I'll just go through the dimensions and the rationale. So having a lobby and a foyer for a space like this welcomes visitors, allows for wayfinding, and it also acts as passive security for exhibitions and creative programs. The exhibition space itself allows display of a range of arts and museological exhibitions, both local and touring for community, and they allow for also flexible ad hoc performances. A multi-purpose room is quite key because of you can present a number of different public programs, and it allows to accept touring exhibitions, and this is a key requirement from those larger institutions to be able to house exhibitions, and also to guarantee the safe passage of artworks and objects. Having an industrial kitchen, I think, is a benefit for a multi-purpose room, which we would potentially hire out to community groups. Toilets, obviously. Creative studio workshops, so dedicated creative spaces where workshops can be held and artists and community can create artworks in the space. This was a key, need from the community when the consultation was out for the previous two engagements. And a back of house space is key as well to accept these touring shows, and it allows for this changeover where there is also to have, say, trades in to create plinths and to install artworks. There needs to be places to store tools and have a bit of a changeover space. And having a storage space is obviously key as well, not necessarily for a big collection, but for that kind of changeover when exhibitions are going in and out. So the recommendation is that the future cultural facility includes substantial exhibition spaces and required facilities that can accommodate professional arts and culture exhibitions, both local and touring. That the future cultural facility meets the needs of the community by including creative spaces for arts workshops, multi-purpose rooms for hire, appropriate back-of-house facilities and staff office. That during the design phase, benchmarking and best practice for arts facilities be incorporated along with suggested dimensions in the report from the beginning so that the function of the facility meets the creative needs of Bayside residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, with the office recommendation just read out, just want to confirm the mover and the second, moved by Councillor Siem, second by Councillor Ridderhoff. Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Ridderhoff, you want to go through?
Oh,
You're the mover.
no, I really welcome this
Sorry,
report.
Councillor Strong.
It's a great vision, to forward the arts and culture in Bayside. I've been involved in artist-run initiatives, independent ones, for 30 years. Way back in 2001 to 2006, we had a place where the buildings are, the new development at, not new now, at Torella Station. It used to be called Mechanici, the old ice cream factory. Mm-hmm. People used to pour off the train, like 800 people, events, art, music, and it was providing art and decor for local festivals. I think it was former Rockdale Council then in Arncliffe Park, but also the Big Day Out. And it's a great thing to have. One thing that I think maybe you could include, but maybe there's not enough space, is longer term affordable art studios for people, because I know that for the creative people in the inner west and beyond and all around, it's becoming harder as rents go up to have studio spaces where they can practice and do their trade. So would you consider like more affordable creative longer term spaces if you could find the space to do it, because that creates a living community as well as the temporary hire spaces having more long term for practitioners to work from and attract to be living, well, not living, but working in the Bayside area.
Through you, Chair. It's great to hear about that initiative in Torella. I agree those spaces are really important for creative production. Bayside Council actually, compared to other councils, has a real opportunity with light industry to kind of lean into that creative production. I think that for this, I guess there are a number of different projects that Bayside are looking into in regards to adaptive reuse of current sites that are already around and are very, aware of that need for artists in residence spaces that are a bit more long term. But I believe that would be probably catered for in a separate site. But no, definitely, I think with the with this proposal, having those creative studios are a bit more open. I guess they would be more for creative workshops and ongoing programming rather than having artists on site. But that's not to say that when the facility is open, there could be say shorter term artists on site, but different space I feel to artists in artist studios.
Yeah, it might be another project to get that happening, but it's no, great report, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brederhoff, and then Councillor Kassim.
Same. I just wanted to say thank you. I know I was a bit annoying about this. So thank you. This makes really sense, and it's really exciting. And I can, see that it fits well within the idea and in the concept of the master plan and everything around it. So thank you very much. And also, like, I just consider multi-purpose room could be used for conferences and similar things probably as well, if it has got a 200 people, which also could bring income.
200 square meters.
Is it square meters? Oh, yeah. Well, we don't fit. 200 people don't fit in a square meter, but almost. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you as well.
Thank you, guys. Councillor Kassim.
Yeah, I'd also like to commend the great work. Thank you. And just note, and also I agree with the idea of artist studios, but I can see that what this does is it fills a hole, which is the hole for visual arts. That's what we don't have is a space for exhibition, and I get that. That's the focus of this. But I do also wonder about performance. Like, performance is mentioned there in your point 2, and 67% of the people said they wanted to have activities, which could have been all sorts of arts activities. Is there any thought for, and I'm not sure what the studio means, so there's reference there to studio. I'm presuming that's a visual arts studio, but I'm wondering about music. I mean, I know that, in other places, there are studios where there are musical things which you can rent or whatever, or utilise, which might be useful for the community. And this goes a little bit to the confidential report next in terms of facilities, but at present, really, there aren't too many other places you can do more contemporary performance. So to get an idea of whether this will in fact fulfil that need as well.
Through the chair, Bayside has a number of facilities across, I guess, its assets that are, could be used in a number of different ways. I think that Rockdale, you have the Town Hall as well as the Guild Theatre, which are facilities that I guess have a historical link with performance, musicals, that kind of thing. So I guess this would be that sits outside of that. And I think that in addition to that, Southern Sydney and between the Cooks River and Georges River is without a space to display in an exhibition format. I think that having a multi-purpose room leans into that kind of like flexibility in what could be presented. It may be, I guess, that in the multi-purpose space there could be kind of an AV tech element that leans into performance or a theatrette or that kind of thing with a small stage area, but it wouldn't be the main offering. I think that with a building like this, you need to kind of have your best foot forward in terms of what it could be. Sometimes facilities can get a bit watered down with that kind of hub model. But yeah, the adaptive reuse of facilities that we already have for performance, I think, could also work in that sense. In terms of studio, it'd be very much so like a classroom workshop space. So I guess, it's a messy space where you have vinyl flooring, access to sinks, that kind of thing, and to allow for community arts programs. We do have a space at Arncliffe Youth Centre, which is a specific visual arts space, but doesn't necessarily get used as much with that for that kind of thing. But yes, that's my answer. Thanks.
No, great, thank you. Yeah, maybe we should switch the youth space into a music space, and then when we get the art space, use the art space there. Maybe a thought.
That's a thought. Thank you, Councillor Kassim. Any other questions, councillors? Mayor McDougall.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Do you have any sort of close comparators on what this facility might look like? What does a 1,000 square metre art and exhibition space, do you have a close comparator somewhere in the Sydney Metro?
Through you, the chair, yes. So through that benchmarking process, I visited a number of locations, but I think that the ones that stood out to me were the art space in Woolloomooloo. So the ground level of that building is about 750 square metres, but they are across 3 levels. So I think that they are a bit of a shining light in regards to visual arts facilities, and they have an entry level with a gallery space, flexible rooms, but also a live-in artist in residence space on the top level. And that multi-purpose room really came from that building because they're a great example of how they've got a space that overlooks Woolloomooloo, has a great view of the water, and they hire that out for functions and things, but can be used for their own programs. But I would say that that facility is a real great comparison for particularly like a ground level, entry level space, as well as Bankstown Art Centre. Bankstown Art Centre has a real is an interesting example of adaptive reuse because it was the former Bankstown pool. And so you have this kind of wraparound kind of art space that includes a number of creative tenants. So you have there you have the Bankstown Theatre Company, you have a Lapidary Club, there's the Urban Theatre Projects, Out Loud, which is the former Bankstown Youth Development Service, but they have a number of tenant organisations in that building and also a gallery space. And so that was comparable, not as big as 900 square metres because they have an internal courtyard. But I guess for this, the modelling definitely comes first and foremost looking at art space in Woolloomooloo. Also the Korean Cultural Centre, which exists on Elizabeth Street, which is a great kind of entry-level space run by the Korean government to kind of promote Korean arts, but a great space to look at in terms of having multiple spaces in there. You have exhibition space as well as workshop spaces and staff room there as well. And another space which is quite different but kind of comparable would be Pine Street Creative Arts Centre that City of Sydney runs, which is purely just kind of for making things. So you've got like ceramic workshops, there's a printmaking space there too. But I definitely looked at that in regards to kind of how you'd incorporate the creative production. But yeah, if you're looking for, I guess, an example that's close to this, it would be art space in Woolloomooloo, the first level.
All right, thank you. And I just sort of provide a very quick comment that I think, as per your statement, you sort of need a really clear vision for something like this. I think there is actually a lot of benefit in making sure it stays focused. It's we don't want to have something that is trying to be all things to all people and then doesn't get people through the door, because that's ultimately what it's about. Engaging people in our community with the arts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, councillors? If not, we've got an officer in action. All in favour, say aye. Yes, declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. Well, that's our final report in the open session. So we go into confidential, yeah, GM. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a confidential report. It is a closed session, so in accordance with Section 10A(4) of the Local Government Act and Council's Code of Meeting Practice, I invite members of the public, which we don't have any, to make representation as to whether or not this part of the meeting should be closed to the public to consider the confidential item. There being no representations, I move that Council close the meeting to the public for the reasons outlined in the report, seconded by Councillor Kassim. Thank you. We'll go into closed session. Okay.
So after considerable discussion, council resolved
I can hear you. Hello.
Fantastic. Okay. Hello, Councillor Dusku. All right. Well, welcome, councillors, members of the public and staff. I declare the meeting open at, I think it's 9:01 or 9:02 p.m. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory, derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in public forum. I don't think we have anyone in public forum. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. I remind all present that the video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders, past and present. We have apologies tonight from Councillor Sarah Vanosky. Are there any other apologies? I think probably is Councillor Douglas, who's that? Oh, no, he's not on this, yeah. Councillor Dusku, I think, is online.
Yes, that's me.
That's fantastic. Does any councillor wish to make any disclosures of interest? She's on leave of absence, yes. And maybe before I ask for disclosure of interest, are we happy to those who are members of the committee to vote on Councillor Curry and Councillor Barlow to join us? Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Carried. Any disclosures of interest tonight? None?
None from me.
Thank you very much. And no one else is indicating, so that's none. Can I ask two councillors who are present at the meeting to move and second confirmation of the minutes? Councillor Brederhoff and the Mayor. On favour or against? Declare it carried. Okay, so there are no speakers in public forum, so we can move to the first report. Which is, I think, the annual report from memory. Yes, it is, the draft annual report. Can I ask someone to move that, please? Councillor Brederhoff, second of the Mayor. Can I have councillor's report? Thank you.
Through the chair, councillors, this is the annual report for the financial year of 25. Sorry, I go in so many different spaces. This is a requirement under the Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework, where we identify, plan, fund and report on all of our services and outcomes for the community. This paper is responding to the reporting expectation and is the annual report. The annual report is Council's primary report to the community. It focuses on letting them know what we have delivered over the 12 months through the operational plan and other requirements as under legislation and regulations are also reported in here. Included in our annual report this year is a section on about Bayside, which has the area people in the organisation, the year in review, a section on how we deliver for our community, talking about the principles and governance functions, the statutory statements, which I'll talk to in a minute about the sorts of things that we need to report on, and also included separately is the general purpose financial statements, which have already been reported to council. Two new sections in the annual report this year. We've got a new page on grants received. It is highlighting all of these specific grants that were received, funds that were received during the year and the projects that were delivered as a result of those grants. A way to show the community that we are going above and beyond to get extra revenue to be able to deliver goods for them. The other new section is a statutory requirement, and it's an attestation from the General Manager that our ARIC risk management framework and internal audit functions are in accordance with the requirements. The year in review section talks about recognition and rewards that we've received during the year for council. It has highlights of the for the year by theme, which was included in the end of year report that you saw at the last meeting. It has financial summaries, celebrations, events celebrated, summarised, and there's details on all the capital works projects that have also been delivered during the year. The statutory statements, which are at the end of the report, is where there's lots of legislation and regulations that we obviously are responding to and have a requirement to report on, and they are all included in their statutory statements at the end. It's quite a lot of information, but some of the more interesting sections of it it includes all of our financial assistance to others. That's reported in here. Our stormwater management services provided against the levy that we have collected for the stormwater management. Access to information activities, so all the KIPA requests that have been received and how many were processed and within timeframes, etc. All of our contracts awarded over $10,000, modern slavery compliance, etc. So there's a lot of statutory regulations that we need to respond to, but there is a fair bit of information in there for the community and for yourselves on how council's been delivering all of those requirements. The next steps for the annual report is that we are required to publish it on our website and email a link to the Office of Local Government by the 31st of November. Along with that will also go the general financial statements. Any questions, councillors?
Yes, anyone, any questions, anyone? No? I was going to just ask, just check you've got capital works, but that doesn't include repairs, right? Like, because I know things like Mascot Senior Sits, I think, had a little bit of work done to it last financial year, for example, but that counts as repairs, not capital works, is that right?
It's not renewals and maintenance, it's only those things that are capitalised.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Any other questions, anyone? Councillor Barr,
Just
yeah.
to say, really detailed report this time, and people do like to see our achievements, especially instead of it being hidden there, it's out the front, so it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. All right, if no other questions, then all in favour? Against, I declare.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Yeah, so congratulations. A lot of work, I know. We can go on to the next item. If I can find it, it's so long. Here we go. Thank you. So the next item is the customer experience statistics. Can I have someone to move? I have a move. Yep, second. Sorry. It is, sorry, quarterly budget statement first. I knew I needed to flip through the pages. Here we go, yes. Someone to move that. Yes, the Mayor, seconded. Councillor Brederhoff. Report,
Thank you, Chair. A quarter budget statement is obviously the first one of the year, so it's a bit of a catch-up and a realignment from what's happened last financial year. So there's not a lot of major changes, but we'll go through some of the trends that have happened and occurred to us. You'll see in the report we've detailed all the descriptions around the major changes. The one to note, which is an evolving problem for us, is around the fines. You'll see in the report we talk about the gross amount of fines has decreased 23% in the quarter. That hasn't hit our financial statements yet, but we're predicting as the quarters go on, we'll obviously start to lose that money as time goes by. So we've made an adjustment there, initial adjustment of 500,000, and then we'll assess it quarter by quarter as the impact comes along. And I think that the team will have a look at that closely. Obviously, it's to do with the change in legislation and how we have to actually get out the vehicles to issue the paper tickets, which is then now slowing the team down, which means they don't get to do as much work as what they previously had done. This is my rough explanation of what's going on there. And the other changes are really related to grants and bringing on sort of additional projects and works which have rolled over in the previous financial year. So the income has been already recognised and put in the reserve. And this year we just got to rephase it back out and add the expenses in. So that's why you see a bit of a material change in the expenses, but they're all to do with projects and grants that have sort of council are now doing. On the third page, we've got our capital works program. It's early stages, obviously, for that, but we're just sort of rephasing a couple of projects, and we've got a presentation dedicated to capital works coming up. But this is just a chance to sort of add in any additional properties that weren't previously budgeted, and then just some minor realignments. But we're still looking at a capital program this year of $92.4 million, which is a very ambitious but obviously achievable target for us. Any questions arising from the quarterly statement?
Any questions? No, none online. If none, then I'll put it to all in favour. Yep, I'm going to thank you. Declare it carried. Thank you very much. And now we can go on to customer experience statistics. And I think we had the movement of seconder already. Councillor Curry and the Mayor. So yes, if we can have the presentation.
Thank you. So I'll be presenting the customer experience quarterly stats for Q1 of the 26 financial year. We'll go through the principals, quarterly data, year-to-date data. We've included some additional CRM data, and then I'll hand over to the Manager of Communications and Engagement for some website trends. With customer experience principles, we focus on 4 key principles to deliver quality customer experience. That's service, information management, the look and feel, and self-service provided to our community. With service in particular, we aim to address the inquiry with the correct information at the first point of contact, with the next steps explained by helpful and friendly staff, and provide updates throughout the life cycle of their request. In Q1, we did see a reduction in the number of calls. That's to be expected. The previous quarter from April to June included the tail end of the waste rollout. So, yep, that's all to be expected, and an overall decrease in the number of transactions as well. When we look at that year to date from Q1 this year to Q1 last year, that's levelled out. So we've had a slight increase in almost everything, a very slight decrease in emails, but certainly levelling out post that high interaction point with the waste rollout. Looking at how our customers raise requests and report issues, that red line indicates in June when we provided an uplift in the online user experience for Report It. We can see that's starting to increase, and we've got planned promotion of that facility on into the future. So we'll continue to promote that and advertise that as an additional easy way for our customers to transact with us at a time of their choosing. The top 4 customer requests, the reports that came in through that first quarter, were related to waste, illegal parking, abandoned vehicles, and illegally dumped rubbish, and that's fairly consistent quarter on quarter. In response to the notice of motion at the council meeting held on the 27th of August, there was a request to include more information about these 3 categories in particular. So with graffiti, we had 118 reports throughout that first quarter. It represents 1% of all of the customer request reports made to council, and 92% of those were finalised within the SLA, and the average days taken to finalise the request was 5. Similarly, for dumped rubbish, making it into the top 4, that represents 7% of all of the reports. Apologies. And yeah, again, sitting at 93% for resolved within the SLA and an average of 5 days taken to finalise. Potholes, 519 reports within the quarter, 4% of all CRMs, and 93% resolved within the SLA, averaging 7 days to finalise. And I'll hand over to the Manager of Communications and Engagement.
I just want to say congratulations on resolving those on first attempt or first response. Well done to the team within the SLA.
So the inquiries addressed at the first point of contact is about hearing the inquiry, reporting it. That CRM data is actioning it or determining what the next steps are and closing that off. But thank you.
Sorry, did I understand that correctly, that it was captured within the SLA period?
Yes.
Yes, the action was captured within the SLA period. And just going back to this statistic here, addressed at the first contact is when customers call in or
Yes, I was actually
report it.
I was going to ask about that. Do you have a sense of why there's a drop from 90 to 78?
It's gone up from 78 to 90.
Oh, that's even better.
It
Fantastic.
is.
Oh, good.
Although we've done a lot of work on knowledge and education and arming our staff with the correct information to facilitate that, it's also about, part of it is to do with the waste changes and how we manage those inquiries. Part of the rollout was bringing all of those inquiries in-house previously.
When we say that we get a complaint about graffiti and it's resolved in 5 days, does that mean the graffiti is actually?
How were they handled previously if now they're being brought in-house?
There was a divide between the east and west from a not fully harmonised contract, and the supplier resolved or addressed those customer inquiries for half of the LGA. It's now all within Bayside.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
No worries. The result, so addressed, if action was appropriate, action was taken within that. If it was deemed outside of appropriate action, it was closed off.
And the SLA is what, 7 days or 10 days or what is it?
So the SLAs are, the top two were 14 days and the bottom one was 28 days, but a review of service level agreements across all CRMs is part of the stage 2 action plan because they haven't been reviewed in quite some time. We need to review them and ensure they're still fit for purpose.
Okay. So dumped, you had the top 3, so one of them was dumped for which is 7%. That means some of those other ones must be very high percentages. Can you go back to that other slide?
Yeah.
So waste is what, about 60, 70% or something, is it?
Yeah. About 30%, yeah. So there are a large number of categories.
Okay.
So in this quarter, there were about 14,000 reports. Waste accounted for approximately 4,000 of those.
Okay. And then illegal parking also quite high and abandoned vehicles quite high.
Yeah.
Like 20, 30% or something. Okay.
Yeah. And those top categories remain quite consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Do you want to keep going?
I just wanted to ask one question. Does that include the councillor CRMs or only the customer?
That's all CRM, so
Okay.
councillor
That's
CRMs
fine.
are included, yes.
Thank you. Okay, talking through just the social media content performance. So in July, our top performing post was the Macedonian oak tree planting in Rockdale Plant. Second was the Report It upgrade to online services, which is that photo there with the graffiti that was highlighting the Report It change. And then thirdly, the demolition beginning at Botany Aquatic Centre. In that month, we also saw some trends on our socials. Our dog off leash areas being highlighted across the LGA was very popular, as well as our NAIDOC program in particular. There was an author talk with Bianca Hunt that was very popular, and the Have Your Say for the basketball court consultation for Arncliffe. Going on to August, we have for both first and second, we have the Spring Fair. And then we have the sinkhole repair. There was a sinkhole repair due to some wet weather at Daceyville. Always performs very well. Our city presentation doing good work. We also had some trends that month as well, just coming into spring with our garden centre and promoting them, as well as the sporting fields wet weather line, because we did experience some wet weather during that month. In September, we had the top performing was our EOI for our handmade Christmas markets. Second was our Barton Park Reel, which was celebrating our wonderful construction award in the Master Builders Association Awards. And third, we had our Have Your Say, which was a reel featuring a whole lot of Have Your Say projects that we had up and open for consultation. Other trends for that month, we also saw abandoned trolleys. We put up sort of education about what you can do if you see that, and that performed very well, as well as the Lytton Hall Open Day and our Project Planet, which was starting to really get heavily promoted during that month. So that's starting to come up as a trend. For our website, just talking through the quarter, so I've got there for July, we had 121,000 views, August 144, as well as September was 144,000. As you can see here, our top pages, predominantly are, of course, the homepage where everyone lands, and followed by usually waste. We've got waste drop-offs particularly performing well in that July period, whereas with the waste and recycling page is really heavily being viewed in September, as well as the rates pages and the wet weather line. They are generally across the board our top pages for the website. Do we have any questions?
Great. Any questions, anyone? Clear? Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. I think accept the report. All in favour? I declare it carried. We'll go on to City Projects Program Q1 update. Ask someone to move this. You want to move this? Mayor, seconded. Councillor Rederhoff, thank you. And we'll have the report.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just sharing my screen. So at Q1, the CPP for this financial year had a total investment value of 86 million. The program includes a range of projects currently being delivered by various teams across council. 65% of the projects were new and 35% were renewals. So the City Projects team is responsible for the delivery of 60 million of this financial year's program, which is made up of 86 projects. By Q1, we had a spend of 3 million, being 5% of the program. However, typically expenditure doesn't peak until Q3 or towards the end of the financial year, as many projects near completion. So all the capital projects run through Council's endorsed project management framework. 10 projects were closed off in Q1, with the majority of works for these projects completed in the previous financial year. By Q1, there were 2 projects at risk, which were waiting on external approvals. 1 project was behind target due to previous delays in receiving Ausgrid approval. 7 projects were introduced in Q1 and 5 projects were on hold at the time. So that's the end of the Q1 update. I've got a few key update on key projects that I'll quickly run through. So the Beach Hut Dolls Point, a DA was lodged at the beginning of the year, and we are expecting to receive approval by the end of the year. Next steps will then be working on detailed design and tender documentation. So for Mascot Oval, a DA was lodged in August this year, and we anticipate that the approval process will extend into the next year. So at Sir Joseph Banks Pump Track project, there was early engagement targeting youth conducted at the Spring Fair in September. with updates and meetings held with the community reference group. We are inviting design and construct tenders this month with the aim of awarding the contract by February next year to commence design. And lastly, we are Botany Aquatic Centre, which we are reporting on the outcomes of the tender today, so I'll leave the updates for that report. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Right, anyone? Nope. Fantastic. I've,
For projects, for projects that are on hold, we'll also provide just in future reports, just provide a comment on what's on hold.
yeah. Yeah, because you provide the information on that risk. I did note that you did put their duration 10 minutes. Congratulations on that. So all in favour? I declare it carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're on to the Botany Aquatic Centre main works.
Thank you. Through the chair.
Oh, sorry, I should have someone move and second. Yeah. Yes, Councillor Curry and the Mayor, thank you.
So tonight I'm here to present a very exciting project milestone, which is the Botany Aquatic Centre tender for the main construction works. The project includes the 50-metre pool, the internal pool hall, which has a 25-metre indoor pool, as well as an indoor learn to swim and program pool. There's the exciting adventure water play and splash pad, the bring back the water slides, as well as the new grandstand, a new building which provides a gym, kiosk and change rooms. In June 2025, Council endorsed the early works package, which included the demolition of the former aquatic centre. That also included the remediation, and the reason that we were doing that was to de-risk the project, and that came from a lot of lessons learnt in our discussion with other councils. So as you can see, demolition is complete and the remediation is now being wrapped up, and the early works contractor Ford Civil will be completed in a couple of weeks, right in time for the main works contractor to commence. In terms of the project milestones, we advertised in August, closed the tender in September, and then we went through a very robust review process of the tenders. And we met with each of the tenders and undertook interviews with them to ensure that they fully understood the scope of the project. Following tonight's presentation, we'll be seeking a council resolution at the November meeting, and if endorsed, establishment of the contract for works to commence early in the new year. And the program submitted by the preferred contractor aligns with council's timeline to have the pool completed and open for the summer of 27-28. You may recall in 2024, we publicly advertised seeking expressions of interest from experienced contractors. We shortlisted 5 Tier 1 reputable contractors that all had the relevant experience in aquatic centres. These 5 were then invited to the select tender, and we received 4 submissions. Tender submissions were assessed against methodology, timeline, capacity, experience and value for money. The preferred contractor is FDC Constructions. They submitted a very thorough tender and it provided a full understanding of the project. Their detailed program aligned with council's milestones. They have extensive experience in the delivery of aquatic centres and have excellent references. Previous projects are the Angelo Anestis Aquatic Centre, completed in 2017. The Ashfield Aquatic Centre, completed in 2020. And the Sydney Swans Community and High Performance Centre, located at Moore Park, which had a construction cost of over $70 million. Project funding, you may recall in July of last year, we brought a funding strategy to council, and that was endorsed with a mix of 711, 712 developer contributions, Sydney Airport funding and VPA funding. And and it is recommended to include Botany Aquatic Centre in the current piece of work for the new contributions plan, with an allocation of up to 15 million to provide contingency for the project. So the recommendation tonight is to accept the tender for FDC construction, and that council notes the contractor lump sum price and anticipated expenditure as included in the confidential attachment, and that you endorse the provision for an internal loan of up to 15 million from the 7-Eleven contributions to be repaid with interest at 4.5% if required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anyone? No?
Sorry, can I just ask, in terms of the idea is we will change our 7-Eleven plan to increase we're not changing our unrestricted funding budget for the project. Is that right?
Through the chair, the new contributions plan that we're currently preparing, which is that piece of work around the 7-Eleven and 712, will have a line item of up to 15 mil. We're not changing any of the other plans. That's correct.
Okay, any other questions, anyone? No, all good? Right, well, thank you, and I'll take the confidential as read, so all in favour? Aye. Oh, great, thank you, I declare it carried. Fantastic, so we can go on to Depina Reserve and Cook Park upgrade. Yes, the Mayor seconded, Councillor Bretterhoff. Yes, please, report.
Thank you. Through the chair. The car park upgrade on the northern side of the Pena Reserve and Cook Park is included in this year's CPP. The car park is divided into east and west segments with the Le Beach Hut restaurant and cafe building between them. The eastern car park is currently used as a pick-up and drop-off zone for the Scots College School. The upgrade to the car park was to address ongoing concerns regarding safety, hooting and inefficient traffic circulation and parking provisions. So the eastern car park is designed to improve circulation and overall efficiency with clear and directional traffic movement and flow. The proposal also includes enhanced pedestrian pathways, and the cycleway now follows the foreshore and no longer cuts through the car park. All existing trees within the car park will be retained. So the western car park will also include circulation improvements to enhance vehicle access and safety with clear directional traffic movement. There is also enhanced pathway connections to this car park. So this slide shows renders of the car park. So in the top image, you can see how the two car parks will connect with through improved pedestrian paths and how they link all the way to the foreshore. The parking spots will be laid with permeable pavers, allowing water to naturally drain through them. The slip lane entrance to the school drop-off area, which is shown at the bottom right render, is purposely narrowed to allow to naturally slow down cars as they enter through that zone. And there are also cobblestone strips throughout the car park circulation area, which are used as traffic calming measures. So there will also be enhanced lighting, provisions for CCTV and license plate recognition technology included as part of the works. So council went out to 10 qualified and experienced civil contractors from the LGP 420 panel, and 5 submissions were received. They were assessed against their project understanding, their recent experience and their capability and their program. So the evaluation recommended MSA Civil and Communications. They demonstrated a strong understanding of the project scope with emphasis on stakeholder needs. They had relevant car park delivery experience and clear capacity to deliver, and a detailed program within council's timeframes. Referee checks confirmed a very good standard of work and the price represented good value for money. So if endorsed by the committee today, the next steps will include going to council meeting, having a contractor engaged by December with a commencement date in January, and project completion in spring next year. So that takes us to our recommendation.
One read that, yep. Lump sum amount of 2,654,000 subject to agreement. All in favour? Yes, yes you can.
Has the Scots College been involved in all of this or consulted? Because I know we had a site meeting before when we couldn't do things, when we pointed them out to you.
Through the chair, yes, we have undertaken consultation, met with the college and also communicated regularly with them in terms of email updates as well.
And are we getting more parking or less or the same?
We're getting an increase in parking.
Wow, yeah, because it's so changed, but you still can't come from Carruthers Drive that right through?
No, we haven't re-implemented the Skinners and
Bollard, yeah.
through. No,
okay. No, it's all right. Thank you.
Sorry, Matt, did you have a question?
My question is also about number of, what's the difference in parking spots? More or less than 10? More than 10. There you go, good enough, thank you.
That's great. That's great. Any other questions, anyone? Anyone online? No?
I just want to say that it's a really good improvement and it's a welcomed improvement and change. Great work.
Yeah. Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Yeah, and against, declare it carried. So we'll go on to Lestrange Park play space. I'm happy to move. Anyone second? Second, Councillor Bretterhoff. We'll have the officers' report. Yes.
Thank you. Through the chair. The Strange Park in Mascot is a well-used district-level play space needing renewal due to wear. Council resolved its upgrade in April last year to improve accessibility and inclusivity, and it has been included in this year's CPP. The project budget is being substantially funded by the grant from the Small Local Commitments allocation and 7-Eleven development contributions. So the design for the play space is in line with the New South Wales Government's Everyone Can Play guidelines and guided by community response through consultation. The scope includes the retention and upgrade of some existing play equipment and the replacement of some aged equipment and new rubber undersurfacing to improve access to play equipment. So the existing equipment improvements include replacing the ropes on the climbing dome, the mound and the play unit, and painting the existing swings and replacing the seats. The new play equipment includes new mound slides, new climbing equipment on the mound, new nature play features, a sensory play equipment, a new water play, and new spring rockers. So there are also non-play renewal items being recommended to improve accessibility and reduce ongoing maintenance. These items will require additional funding. These include installing a new rubber wear pad beneath the swing and repainting the swing, replacing the section of the boardwalk with a durable deck, and renewing the boundary fence with a new 1.2 metre high fence. So following community engagement, the feedback included requests for an additional mound slide for younger children, a hammock swing, and the replacement of the junior swing to include better inclusive seating. These inclusions will require additional funding. So council invited quotations via vendor panel. 4 submissions were received and they were assessed against project understanding and construction methodology, their program, and their experience, capability and capacity to undertake the work. So the recommendation was for Better View Landscapes. They had an excellent grasp of scope and site constraints. They provided a comprehensive low-risk methodology and program, and they had a strong record of similar playgrounds projects that can be seen in the images below. They also offer good value for money. So if endorsed at the committee today, the next steps will be going to council meeting with the contractor engaged early December. There is a long lead time with the equipment, ordering the equipment. So commencement on site will not be until March next year with a project completion date in winter next year. So that takes us to our recommendation.
It was already done. Recommend, we've done the moving and seconding. Are there any questions? Any comments from anyone? Yeah. I mean, I noticed there were comments asking for and it's great you've put in the water, that the sand, what's the story with sand? Like it's, too hard to look after or something? Because there was some comments wanting sand play as well.
Through the chair, we have had issues with the maintenance of sand. So whilst we can accommodate the water play at this location, it is more challenging to deal with sand in terms of animals, debris, and we do need to do an inspection every morning if there is sand in the playground.
Yeah, I suspect as much, just checking. And also there were comments asking for facilities for older children. Now, I know that you want to keep the young kids in a nice little safe place together, but what other things can we do for people who've got mixed age kids?
Through the chair, there is a D basketball court outside of the fenced area at Lestrange Park. And if you recall, in October, we presented on the multi-purpose of the mascot depot. So we are looking at broader youth facilities at Lestrange Park so that it's not just children-based.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay. I think that's all. If no one else has got any other... and there were mixed views on trees. I take it trees are difficult because leaves, debris drop and is that the story there?
Through the chair, it is a heavily shaded park, but with that does come the debris drop, and that has very differing views from members of the community.
Yeah, but yeah, we certainly want shade. I mean, I think, and if you have deciduous, they're just going to drop more, so what can you do? That's fine. All right, well, if no other comments all in favour? Yep.
Can I just make a comment after dealing with another playground issue where it's been very difficult to replace equipment when we're sourcing the play equipment for this, making sure that sort of spare parts are a significant factor in procurement. We've been dealing with a broken spinner for several months now, I think, that apparently we can't replace because the supplier's, difficult.
Yeah. Okay. All right, all in favour? Aye, no, declare it carried. And we'll go on to Tyndale Reserve, Carlton. Mover? Okay. Councillor Barlow, and seconded Councillor Brennerhoff. And yes, we'll have your report.
Thank you. Through the chair. The play space at Tyndale Reserve has been identified as requiring renewal due to its aged condition and its location being in flood-affected part of the park. The scope also includes opportunities for other park embellishments. So concept design of the playground went out to have your say, seeking feedback from the community on the proposed play space location, the type of equipment and other park embellishments. Overall, the community supported the proposed play space, which includes inclusive equipment and safe undersurfacing in line with the Everyone Can Play guidelines. So this slide shows the play equipment that were voted for, as well as additional park features that were included, which includes a fitness station, number of new picnic tables, a small hard stand for games such as handball and a netball shooting post, additional park seating, the relocation of the existing picnic shelter, and a shade sail over the play space. So equipment chosen to cater for the fitness equipment, it was to cater for all ages and fitness levels, promoting inclusivity, and it was in response to community feedback requesting static equipment for chin-ups, dips, stretches, and sit-ups. So there are 3 main stations, include core and leg pods, body dips, and double pull-ups. So these equipment promote health and social interaction and is a low maintenance outdoor solution. So council invited quotations via vendor panel under the LGP 420 prescribed supplier panel. 6 submissions were received and were assessed against price and non-price criteria, including project understanding and construction methodology, the program, and their experience, capability, and capacity to undertake the work. So the recommendation was for Growth Civil Landscape. They demonstrated a strong understanding of the project with a detailed construction methodology. They had proven capacity to deliver an extensive experience on similar projects, including for Bayside Council, where they delivered the play space at Depina Reserve. And they had a realistic, well-structured program. So if endorsed at the committee today, the next steps will include going to council meeting in November, having a contractor engaged early December. Same with this playground, there's a long lead time for play equipment. So commencement will be on site in April next year with a project completion by winter. So that takes us up to our recommendations.
Are there any questions, anyone? Yes,
Lots.
Councillor Barlow.
Um,
Councillor Barlow and then, Councillor Tedesco, did you have a question?
Well, it's just a comment that it's nice to see this park being upgraded, as it has a special place in my heart after preschool, which used to be across the road, but now is a block of units. I used to always frequent that park, so it's nice to see that it's getting an upgrade.
Councillor Barlow.
Well, just a couple of questions. You know, the people that occupy the rotunda thing. Now, I know, where do you think, where is the seating? I was trying to work it out because you've got the picnic shelter, which will be too close to the playground, but they don't care. So we're moving there. They own that gazebo thing, whatever it's called, on the Mill Street side. They think that certain residents believe that is theirs. They tell everyone to get out. So is it, I mean, it's quite, they're aggressive. They really, they've pushed children away and everything. They just say, get out. So, and they drink there and then they smoke as well. But so is there, can we just leave that there? Because that's a big space there, and that's sort of where we have our main problem in the park.
Through the chair, the relocation of the shelter was to address the antisocial behaviour in the park.
Well, it won't address it, it'll just move it. What I'm saying, they will just move to where they think, because they go there, they sit there, they drink all their grappa, whatever. And so what I'm saying, it won't address them, whether you can leave that. That's the problem you're going to have wherever you, and if you move it over there, they'll just follow it. They won't. So if they stay in the one spot, you might be better than, because it didn't matter if they were close to the playground. They don't care. I know they've got to be 10 metres away, and they swear, and that. So that was one, and the other one was the fitness centre. That none of that equipment I would be able to use, and I saw the one at. Is it Jack Mundy Reserve, which was a double one, which was the one with your arms and then you're on a bike. And I've got a photo of it. That to me is more useful than pulling up chin-ups, because I couldn't do chin-ups, definitely not at the moment. But so that was the one. And I think if the gentlemen will just congregate wherever their seating is, so if we can leave it, be happy to leave it there, because that is a big space there. And I'm glad to see you've got a netball ring. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? If not, all in favour? All against? Carried. Fantastic. Well, we are on to, I think, the last report. The Scarborough Park Central Sportsfield lighting. Do I have a mover? Seconder, Councillor Brederhoff, and we'll have the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair.
No?
Sorry?
Take it as read? All good? Fantastic. All right, all in favour? Good, and against, declare it carried. Congratulations, everyone, on sticking around until 9:51 when I declare the meeting closed, and we'll turn the YouTube off.